And welcome to the latest in our Picks and Ponderings video preview series taking a look at Halloween weekend's Breeders' Cup. I'm Paul Mazur and can be found on Twitter at HeyLaserbeam. The always trusty Nicolle Neulist is on the program as well. She's at Road Clown. We're the team of Picks and Ponderings at Picks Ponderings on Twitter. In this video preview, we're going to look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. A chance to look at the future stars of tomorrow, or so we think. As the Breeders' Cup Juvenile isn't always the best precursor to next year's Kentucky Derby. Granted, this year it gives you 20 points in the Kentucky Derby qualification points system. But due to FCC regulations, I shall refrain talking about the Kentucky Derby points system, and I'll just instead move on to talk about 2-year-olds that will go 1 mile and a 16th on the dirt.
No, that sounds like a good plan, and I'm right there with you. Fortunately, internet radio and the internet broadcasting is not subject to quite the same, FCC 7 dirty words sorts of regulations, but yeah, let's just say we'd fall right under George Carlin's little umbrella if we started actually talking about the Derby point system.
You mean I could curse during these podcasts? Sweet!
Well, you can. The FCC doesn't have a word to say about it.
Hot diggity damn. And speaking of hot diggity damn, that's how I feel about my play here in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Sitting in post number 11, and that's Isotherm. Yes, Isotherm has done some very nice work on the turf. Graduated at Saratoga, second start out. Third start out, won the Pilgrim. The thinking with a horse by Lonhro is it's all about grass. Lonhro was a wonderful daisy cutter down in Australia. So why am I backing this horse in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile? I think trainer George Weaver is taking a gamble here with Isotherm, thinking for double the purse, for an early shot at some Derby points. And by the way, if my arm were in a sling, I would be using double finger quotes. So we'll just have to use one and settle with that. But a look over at the maternal side of the breeding. With More Than Ready as a brood Marsar, I think there might be some dirt breeding. Granted, this one tried dirt first time out, finishing behind Stick Stately's Dude in a next down winner, but that was the first start, and that was at Saratoga. Maybe there's been some improvement from now until then with Isotherm. And keep in mind, More Than Ready was a crack dirt sprinter, winning races like he won the Vosburg at 3, I believe. He was a quality sprinter miler on the dirt. Even though his progeny have done quite well on the turf, maybe there's enough dirt, maybe there's just enough dirt breeding, and maybe this juvenile field is just bad enough or just weak enough that Isotherm, I think, can close into a projected moderate to fast pace that happens in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile.
That makes sense. You make a good argument for a horse who looks turf, and Isotherm will definitely be the right price to take a shot. As for me, this race had me looking very heavily at Keeneland. Ended up having me look heavily at Keeneland dirt form that went through Brody's Cause, but was not Brody's Cause. Brody's Cause is a legitimate enough horse. That said, he's probably going to be a much shorter price here than he was last time or the time out before that. And if you didn't go to the wedding, don't go to the funeral. There are some longer priced horses with some upside. And though my top selection, my more likely winner in this race is Exaggerator. Exaggerator is going to be a shorter price too. For my play here, I'm going to look at another horse who goes through Brody's Cause, and that is maiden winner Conquest Big E. He drew on the rail, which is usually a little questionable for a 2-year-old. That said, he's drawn the rail before. He has that bit of experience in his pocket. that first race didn't start all that well for him. He broke in the air. It was kind of ugly at the beginning, but he got himself into the race, looked like he was going to win, and then got run down by some 30-to-1 shot. You guessed it, Brody's Cause, who had done nothing on the turf at the Pea Patch, sandbagged, and ran them all down there. He came back opening weekend at Keeneland, stretched out from the flat mile to a mile and a 16th, and absolutely romped over a field of maidens. I know this breaks Paul's little refrain of not picking horses from the Cassie barn, but at 30-to-1 morning line, and I don't guess he's going to go 30, but I'm guessing he's going to go 20 or 25 just because there are so many horses in here who do have known stakes form. He's got enough to compare it to. He's got a win over the course, and he's going to be a crazy overlay. My play is the maiden winner, number 1, Conquest Big E.
I've mentioned in other video previews how I think the Cassie Burn could go ice cold at Keeneland after going on an absolute tear during the fall meet. But considering you're going to get a price on Conquest Big E, this might be the time to wave the banner for him. He's not my pass horse at all, and in fact, my pass horse is going to be a horse who takes a lot of money. My pass horse is number 3, Greenpoint Crusader. Greenpoint Crusader is perhaps best known as winning the Grade 1 Champagne at a 1-turn mile. But the Belmont races on Champagne for Zet weekend were just like the Keeneland 2-year-old races. Wet tracks abound. I think the pedigree on this one by Bernardini out of a crypto clearance mare brought out all the wet track form that was possible with Greenpoint Crusader. Granted, Greenpoint Crusader does have a dry track win in the closing days of Saratoga over an extant winner, but I think that Greenpoint Crusader absolutely freaked in the Champagne, and I think he comes back to reality and regresses, especially on a dry track. The stretch out isn't an issue with him. I just think it's the dry track.
Whereas out of the New York horses, the only one I give much of a shake to is, the only one I'm even considering using somewhere on my tickets is the aforementioned Greenpoint Crusader. I don't think he freaked in the slop. I like that he's run decently over the dry track. I love the breeding. Bernardini out of Ava Knows the Code, who's one of our modern blue hens. He's full of algorithms. He's half to Justin Phillip. The breeding can hardly be beat. And he did that with style. Is he going to absolutely gallop in the Juvenile the way he did in the way he did last out at Belmont in the Champagne? Of course not. He's got much tougher stuff to deal with. But I liked that Champagne enough. I liked his maiden win leading into the Champagne enough. I like his ability to stretch out. He's not my top selection, but he's one I'm definitely using. My pass, on the other hand, is that West Coast horse, Nyquist. He's won 4 in a row. He is not going to make it 5 in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. He won those 3 sprints with style, but as soon as he stretched out to a mile and a 16th last out in the front runner, he won, but I'm not sure if it was the end of what he can do or just the end of how he's developed now, but it was not he just didn't seem quite as sharp as he did in those sprints. I don't know if it's because he can't stretch out. I don't know if it's because he's getting kind of up to and or over the hill for now, needs to sit down for a while, come back at 3, but I think Nyquist is going the wrong way. He's going to take a lot of money because his connections have been so hot through the summer, early fall, because he is an undefeated 4-race horse. I don't want any part of Nyquist.
I could see you not liking Nyquist here in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile because I like a horse that's owned by Redham Racing and trained by Doug O'Neill. I like the other one, the one that won the Hopeful. But my pass is going to be Greenpoint Crusader. So to recap, my play for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is the number 11 Isotherm, who can close into a quick pace and gets another chance on the dirt. And my pass horse is 3 Green Point Crusader, who I think freaked in the Champagne and comes back to reality on a dry keen dirt.
My play in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is the number 1 Conquest Big E, who has 2 races under his belt, has drawn the rail before, still ran a good race, has form through Brody's Cause, and has the win over the Keeneland track. Going to be a bomb price because he doesn't have that stakes win under his belt, but watch out. As for my pass is the number 13 Nyquist. I just don't think he's all his 4 wins out west are cracked up to be. Thank you for watching our Picks and Ponderings video preview of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and good luck.